Hello and welcome to this video by Perfect Scores. This is Preetinder Kaur, and this is a lesson that I've created for the writing and language section of the new SAT. And it's also applicable to lots of other tests, especially the ACT, which is having a lot of elements common with the new redesigned SAT. So in Writing and Language 1, we've discussed important aspects of punctuation and a host of really important grammatical errors. In this one, we're going to focus more on the other errors. And before we get started, don't forget to note down this address of our website, which is www.perfect-scores.com. So let's get started. The learning objectives of this video are going to cover these four basic grammar errors: modifiers, parallelism, comparison, and idioms and diction. So let me select my pen over here. All right, so let's get started with the first error, which is going to be modifiers. Now, there are three major modifiers that are tested on the new SAT and on the ACT as well, and even in other commonly used standardized tests. So let's begin with what a modifier is. Modifier, as the name suggests, helps to describe any part of a sentence. For example, if I say, let's say, a fast car. Now, the word fast over here is describing car. So we say that fast is modifying car. So fast becomes a modifier. So there are three common kinds of modifiers: adjectives, adverbs, and phrases. Now, adjectives help to modify either nouns or pronouns. For example, a red coat. So red is an adjective that modifies coat. So that is one kind of modifier. I can also say that it is red. So in this case, red is the modifier that describes the pronoun it. So red is an adjective and it can be used to modify only nouns and pronouns. And red is a modifier. So let me put that in a circle. Coming to adverbs, adverbs discuss three kinds of parts of speech. They can either modify adjectives, they can either modify verbs, or they can modify other adverbs. So it's called an adverb because of the combination of adjective and verb. Let's take an example of an adverb modifying an adjective. If I say, this is a very bad idea. Now, idea is a noun which is getting modified by the adjective bad. Bad is the adjective which is actually getting modified by this adverb, which is very. So very is an adverb that modifies the adjective bad. So lots of adverbs, they end with ly, but there are some exceptions like very and well. Okay, let's take an example of an adverb that modifies a verb. If I say, eat quickly. So quickly describes how should you eat. So quickly is an adverb that modifies the verb eat. So quickly is the adverb or the modifier. Coming to adverbs, if I say, eat very quickly. So just like the previous example, quickly is the adverb modifier that modifies the verb eat. Very is another adverb modifier that modifies the adverb quickly. So you can see how the adverb is modifying another adverb. So these are modifiers. So if I give you a simple sentence, let's say, the boy ate. If you want to add more information to this, you will probably use modifiers. So you can say, for example, the tall boy ate slowly. So all these extra additions that I've made, without which also the sentence is grammatically complete and correct, these are modifiers. So that is a little rule of modifiers. If you can remove the modifier, the remaining sentence will still be correct. So if you remove the word tall and if you remove the word slowly, the remaining sentence is still an independent clause. It's still a complete sentence. So that's a rule of identifying modifiers. But the one that's used maximum times and tested a lot in the tests is the modifier phrases. All right, so phrases are actually complete, let's say, groups of words that modify something. Let's take the same example. The boy ate. And I want to describe something about, let's say, the boy. So I can probably add over here, the boy who was hungry ate. So this extra addition that I can make over here next to the word boy is the modifier phrase. So if I want to insert it here, I will have to enclose it within 2 commas. So the boy, comma, who was hungry, comma, ate. So I hope this is clear. What are the kinds of modifiers? Usually it's adjectives, adverbs, and phrases. Phrases are tested more often, and we're going to see what the common errors of modifiers are. So the common error is called a misplaced modifier. So you have a sentence over here. The girl bought a watch from the man which cost 100 AED. If you spend some time on this sentence, you can easily identify which part is the modifier. Is it the first part or is it the second part? Now, if you remove the second part, the remaining sentence is still complete. So that means the second is the modifier. Look at the meaning, which cost 100 AED. Now, which cost 100 AED should refer to which thing? Should it refer to the girl, the watch, or the man? Logically, it should refer to the watch. So this phrase should be carried and put over here. So that is the error in this sentence. So the sentence is wrong. The correct sentence should be, the girl bought a watch which cost 100 AED or dollars from the man. All right, so that is an error of a misplaced modifier. So you need to correct the placement. And remember, whenever you have a which, the which and the phrase that follows it should refer to the noun just before it. That's why we want to put it next to the watch. The second common modifier error is that of dangling modifiers. Let's look at the sentence. While taking out the trash, the bag broke. Now grammatically it may seem fine, but meaning-wise it's a wrong sentence because it looks like the bag was taking out the trash. So it's a dangling modifier. We don't know it refers to what. So there are 2 options. Option number 1, you convert this active voice sentence into a passive voice. So you can write, while it was being taken out, or let's say, while the trash was being taken out. So in this case, we don't need to refer to any person. We can simply just write it in the passive voice. While the trash was being taken out, the bag broke. So there's no need of adding any person's name. Or if you have another option, you can add a person's name. While I was taking out the trash, the bag broke. So there are 2 options and you can use whichever one of them is given in the options of your question. Let's go and practice whatever we have learned so far on the modifier. So let's correct the following sentences. The first one says, Erica baked a cake for Linda with candles on the top. If you read it, grammatically it's correct, but it looks like candles on top is modifying Linda, but that's wrong. It's not Linda who has the candles on the top, it's the cake. So Erica baked a cake with candles on the top for Linda. That should be the correct version, not the original one. The second, staring down the ski slope, Bob's knees started to tremble. Now clearly, the first part is a modifier, but who was staring down the ski slope? It wasn't the knees, it was Bob. So you will mention that while Bob was staring down the ski slope, his knees started to tremble. The third one, buried under 11 inches of snow. The runway officials could not see the track. So clearly the first part is a modifier, but what was buried under 11 inches of snow? Definitely it wasn't the officials, it was the track. So Either you pull the track from here and bring it over here. You can say buried under 11 inches of snow, the track was not seen by the runway officials. Or you can take this modifier and put it at the end of the sentence. You can say the runway officials could not see the track which was buried under 11 inches of snow. Now the next one. I shot the elephant in the pink pajamas. It looks like the elephant was wearing the pink pajamas. Now, that may be possible in a cartoon, but in the test, it may not be a possibility. It's just not logical in real life. So it was I who was wearing the pink pajamas. So you should say I, in the pink pajamas, shot the elephant. So that would be the correct version. Then the next one. After watching the horror movie, the phone rang. Now clearly the first part is a modifier. It looks like the phone had watched the horror movie. So you need to correct it. You need to add the person's name. While I was watching the horror movie or after I had watched the horror movie, the phone rang. Now clearly you can't use a passive voice here because you can't say after the horror movie had been watched, the phone rang. You would generally, it will be preferable if you answer it by using the name of a person. If you put the subject over here. After someone had watched the horror movie, the phone rang. So I hope it was all clear to you. Let's try out this knowledge on a question, but before that, let's revise what we learned for which. The only rule of which you need to remember is whenever you have a sentence and you have which and some phrase, which should always refer to the noun just before it. The sentence may end here or it may continue, but whichever the case, this modifier of which should refer to the noun just before it. So here's a few practice questions for you. Let's try the first one. It says cheek to cheek, the dance is performed to the relaxed two-step tempo, and the bands often play long past midnight. Let's look at the original option. It says cheek to cheek. Now clearly cheek to cheek is the modifier. Now let me put it over here. Cheek to cheek is the modifier. Now the dance is not cheek to cheek. It's the people who are dancing cheek to cheek. So definitely A is gone. Let's look at the other options. B. Couples dance cheek to cheek to the relaxed two-step tempo. That seems fine. C option. A relaxed two-step tempo, comma, the couples dance cheek to cheek. Now in C it looks like the couples are a relaxed two-step tempo, which is completely wrong. So C is eliminated. D. Cheek to cheek, the two-step tempo, again wrong because it looks like cheek to cheek is describing the two-step tempo. Now although you will see in B we are making an addition which is couples, but B is the only one which is grammatically correct, so it's the right answer. Then the next one. The Udam in the 1700s first encountered the guitars of Spanish missionaries. Now this is a different question. All of the following would be acceptable placements for the underlined portion except. So that means 3 of them are going to be acceptable. We have to find the one that is not. So in the 1700s, if you put it next to the Udam, it's absolutely correct. So A is acceptable. Let's go to B. It says at the beginning of the sentence. So if you read it, in the 1700s, the Udam first encountered the guitars, which also seems correct. It's modifying everything correctly. Then C option after the word guitars. The Udam first encountered the guitars in the 1700s of Spanish missionaries. Now, in the 1700s does not modify guitars at all, so C is not acceptable. D. After the word missionaries, the Udam first encountered the guitars of Spanish missionaries in the 1700s. So yes, we are talking about a particular group of missionaries in the 1700s, so D is acceptable. So you can see the odd one out is C, so C is going to be your answer. So a lot of students make mistakes in questions that have the word except, so be very careful in that. Let's take another question. The best placement for the underlined portion would be. And the underlined portion is in pink tinted glasses. So, first of all, let's read the sentence. Yesterday on the subway, I sat across the aisle from a woman who was composing music in pink tinted glasses in a notebook. Now, out of all the nouns that you've seen in the sentence, pink tinted glasses will be used for what? Obviously, the woman. So that is why your answer in this question is straight away B. Across the aisle from a woman in pink tinted glasses who was composing music in a notebook. So B is the answer over here. Then fourth one. On each wing, all flighted birds have 10 feathers, each one shaped. And then you have two words, slight, different. Now clearly the word different or whatever has to come in its place will modify a verb which is shaped. So definitely it's not different, it needs to be differently. So if you have these options, you can easily eliminate D and A. And the word slight needs to modify the adverb differently. So what thing modifies an adverb? Another adverb. So not slight, but slightly. So B is eliminated. C is going to be the answer. So each one shaped slightly differently. So that was all about the modifiers. The next thing that we need to do is going to be parallelism. Now, parallelism is a simple concept. It means whenever you have items in a list, they need to be parallel to one another. Just like parallel lines in maths. They're not the same line, but they are identical to each other. So, simple sentence. Seeing is believing. What are the two items over here? Seeing and believing. They are parallel to each other because they are in the same tense. If you say seeing is to believe, that's going to be wrong. So you either say seeing is believing, or you can say to see is to believe. So let's go to this little practice that we have over here. Are the following sentences correct? The first one, Mary's mother packed her lunch, woke her up, and takes her to school. Not correct. So easily you can see that packed, woke, and takes are not in the same tense. So this is a wrong sentence. It should be packed her lunch, woke her up, and took her to school. The second one, the students were extremely happy because they had a good lunch, an early end to school, and they had no homework. So you have two options here. Either you put the here as well. So they had a good lunch, they had an early end to school, and they had no homework. Or you completely remove they had from here. They had a good lunch, an early end to school, and no homework. So originally this sentence also was incorrect. Let's move on to some practice questions. It's impossible to predict which people will dig into their pockets. Let me just change the pen here. Okay, it's impossible to predict which people will dig into their pockets or blank their purses. So there's only one option that matches dig, which is C, open. So C is directly the answer. Then number 6, my father was an avid gardener. Every Saturday morning he would put on his work clothes, pick up his hoe and trowel, and head out the back door. You don't need the would. So if you look at all options, it's going to be option number H, which puts everything in a parallel form, put, pick, head. So H is going to be the answer. Now remember, in the new SAT, you don't get options like F, G, H, and J. You only get options A, B, C, D. But in the ACT, you do get options like F, G, H, and J. So that's the third error for the video, which is comparisons. An easy error because it's based on a lot of common sense. So comparative word that you use depends on the number of items being compared. For example, if you compare two things, you can use words like between. You can use words like more beautiful, more intelligent, taller, smarter. But if you are comparing three things or more than three, you have to use words like among, most, tallest, smartest. So remember this one little rule. Another very important difference is that between like as and such as. So like is used to compare nouns. For example, he is just like me. So you're comparing nouns or pronouns, both of them. As is used to compare actions. For example, do as I say. So do is an action, say is an action. Then such as. Such as is not used for comparisons at all. It's used to give examples. Let me give you an example. I know a lot of people such as A, B, and C. So such as is only for examples. Like is used to compare pronouns and nouns. As is used to compare actions. So let's practice on a few sentences. Unlike Turkmenistan, the policies of the United States are liberal. Now, in this sentence, you're trying to compare a country and the policies of another country. So it's a wrong sentence because even if they are nouns, they are incomparable. So either you can say, unlike Turkmenistan, the United States has liberal policies. Or you can say, unlike Turkmenistan's policies, those of the United States are liberal. So either you compare country to country or you compare policies to policies. The second example, my new phone's battery lasts way longer than my old phone. Again, a wrong comparison. You're comparing my new phone's battery to the old phone. So this is wrong because either you compare battery to battery or you compare the new phone to the old phone. But this right now is a wrong sentence. And the next important error that we have to do is the verb tense error. A very important error because a lot of people are not aware of the proper tenses. So let's take one tense. Let's use the simple verb provide and work on these tenses. As you can see, there are 9 tenses over here. That means the simple, progressive, continuous, and the perfect for each of them, for past, for present, and for future. There is a fourth tense in all of these 3 categories, which is the perfect continuous, but that is often not used. All right, so let me just change the color here. Okay, so the verb that you were going with was provide. So the simple tense, let's just focus on the simple right now. The simple is the most basic form of the verb. So for example, the simple past. So you can have variations like he provided, they provided, I provided. So in all cases, we are using provided. If you come to the simple present, it's going to be I provide, you provide, they provide, or he provides, she provides, the teacher provides, the person provides. So depending on the subject-verb agreement, you can easily change the tense. Then the simple future, all you need to do is put a will. I will provide, you will provide, they will provide, he will provide, she will provide. So there's no such tense known as will provides. So that is the simple tense. In the progressive or continuous, all that we need to do is add the ing. So the past continuous or the past progressive is going to be I was providing, she was providing, he was providing, they were providing, you were providing. So that is going to be the past progressive or past continuous. For the present progressive or present continuous, you can use variations like I am providing, or they are providing, we are providing, you are providing. And for singular subjects, you can use she is providing, the person is providing, he is providing, the man is providing. For future, again, all you need to do is add will, add be, and add providing. For all, I will be providing, she will be providing, you will be providing, they will be providing. So that is the progressive or the continuous. For perfect, all you need to add is one of the H words, either has, or have, or had. So what's the difference between these three? Has and have are used for the present. Had is used for the past. Has is used for everything singular. Have is used for everything plural, for I and for you. Had is used for all things. So I'm going a little fast in this video, but what you should do is, if you have a doubt, pause and replay the video from the point that you did not understand. And another suggestion that I would make is you should keep taking down these notes somewhere and maintain like a little journal where you note down all of these grammar rules. And then when you do some kind of practice questions or practice papers, you should refer to those rules and keep revising them regularly. So the past perfect is going to be I had provided, she had provided, we had provided. So as we're talking about the past, we will use had for all things. So there's no other variation of that. In the present, however, it's a different story. You can say she has provided, my brother has provided, or he has provided. You can also say I have provided, they have provided, you have provided. So you have all of these variations. All right, then coming to the future perfect, you will just be using will, you will be using have, and you will be using provided. So you'll just say will have provided for example, I, you, he, she, it, they, for everything. It's going to be the same. I will have provided, you will have provided, they will have provided, she will have provided. So I hope it was clear to you what these three major categories mean for each of the past, present, and the future tenses. Let's go ahead and also note down two important things that you should know about the use of the perfect tense. Now, you know that we always follow these three basic rules. You need to check grammar first, then you go for meaning, and then you also try to be as concise as possible. So perfect tenses, obviously, they add an extra word. They add those extra H words. So we don't use them everywhere. We use them only when needed. So when exactly are they needed? They're needed in these two cases. Let's begin with the second one first because it's easier. Reference to time. So if your sentence has words like until, during, for, since, or any other word that gives a reference of time, you have to use the perfect tense. For example, I have not done this until now. I had not felt so for 8 years. I have not gone there since 2008. I haven't done this during this year. So in any kind of sentence where you have a reference to time or you come across these words, you have to use the perfect tense. The second case is when you have two actions in the past. So let's say this is a timeline. This marks the present right now. This is the future, and this side is the past, and time is moving in this direction. So let's say you had two actions happening in the past. Action number 1, action number 2. So to differentiate which one happened earlier, you have to use the perfect tense for the one that took place first. Okay, for example, I thought you had called, or I thought you had won. Now there are two actions happening in the past. One is my thinking and one is your winning. So according to this sentence, first you won and then I thought about it. So when I was thinking, it was again in the past. I was thinking that you had won. Let me give you another sentence to make it a little more clear. Let me give you, in fact, 3 variations of the same sentence. I called when you had asked. Just try to figure out which action happened first. Did I call first or did you ask first? Now I'm using the perfect tense for the second one, so this one happened first. I can also use another sentence. I had called when you asked. That means I had already called before you asked something. So in this sentence, had called means that calling took place before the asking. Let's take a third sentence. I called when you asked. Now in this, I'm not using the perfect tense at all. Can you guess why? Why am I not using the perfect tense? That's because both of these actions took place at the same time. Now, obviously, in these sentences, you can't judge which one will be correct, but in the real test, you will be able to judge from the logic of the passage that is given to you, and you can make out easily which action happened first. So let's move on to the next part of verbs that we need to do, which is the subjunctive case. Subjunctive case is a little different from the verbs that we have discussed so far, and it's used in two cases. One is for hypothetical situations. For example, you can say, if I were the president, I would do something. So normally with I, we use the verb was. But in hypothetical situations, you have to use were. That is known as the subjunctive case. Or I wish I were the winner. So you're not actually the winner, but in a hypothetical scenario, if you were the winner, you would use such an example. I wish I were the winner because I'm not the winner right now. So I hope that's clear. Hypothetical situations. The best way to further, let's say, learn these rules or make them understood in a better way would be to try and form examples of your own. The second case when subjunctive case is used is whenever you have a command, an order, or a request, or let's say a recommendation, a suggestion, or anything strong like that. So you can have sentences like that. The teacher requested that she submit the report. Okay, now in this example, it's following a particular request. So whenever you have sentences like this one, you have to follow 4 rules. The first rule is that there shouldn't be any should in the sentence because it's redundant. The meaning of should is already there inside the word requested. The second rule is that will be used in 100% of the cases. You have to use the word that. The third rule, the tense that you use should always be in the present. And the fourth rule, the tense that you use should always be in the plural. Now in the normal case with the word she, we use submits. She submits the report. But in this case, in the subjunctive case, you're going to use she submit the report. Another example would be, let's say the government ordered that the troops vacate the area. So all of these 4 rules are really important. You don't need any should. You have to use a that. You have to use the tense in the second part of the sentence as a present plural tense. So that's all that you need to know about the subjunctive case. Again, if you did not understand any part of this, because I know it's a little complicated and a little confusing as well, you should pause and rewatch this video. From the point you did not understand, try to make your own examples and try to solve some more questions. So let's do some practice. The 7th one. Okay, here's the pen. As the dancers stepped to the music, they were also stepping in time to a sound that embodies their unique history. Now you know, the sentence is talking about something in the present, so were also stepping is wrong. Are also stepping, we can keep it because it's in the present. Have also stepped means they have just completed something and we don't need the perfect tense, so C is wrong. Will also step. Definitely we are not using the future tense, so D is also wrong and B is the answer. Try the 8th one. The child with the ball wonders at the grown-ups' odd, noisy behavior. Meanwhile, the runners continue to score. They score, that is, if they were not to be distracted by the grown-ups or the butterflies. Alright, now, we're not talking about a hypothetical scenario. We are saying they score that if they're not distracted. So F is definitely wrong. They would not have been. It's using too many words and we don't need our option to be so wordy. They are not to be. it gives you the wrong meaning. It gives you the meaning they ought not to be, which is wrong. The simplest answer is H, which is clear, concise, and it gives the right meaning. They score if they are not distracted by the grown-ups. Because we're talking about the present, so it's completely correct. They are not distracted by the grown-ups. So answer is H. Another question. So this one is a combination of two questions, question 9 and number 10. The bird rehabilitator begins by determining which feather has been damaged. On each wing, all flighted birds having 10 primary flight feathers, each one shaped slight different. Now we've already done this 10th question, so might as well put the answer here directly, which is H. Now read this sentence again. On each wing, all flighted birds have 10 primary flight feathers. So the answer is D, because that is the only one that makes it correct. Now each one shaped slightly differently is more like a concluding phrase. It's more like a modifier. So if you remove it, the actual sentence says that all flighted birds have 10 primary flight feathers. So you don't need any punctuation, you don't need any commas between birds and have, and D option is the right answer. Another one. During World War II, a group of Navajo soldiers developed one of most successful codes in US military history, and it's talking about the past. American military officials have been is totally wrong. It should be had been, because we're talking about the past. B is the only option that uses the past tense, so B becomes the right answer. So let's move on to the next kind of error, which is word choice and diction. Very, very important. So a lot of times on both the SAT and the ACT, you will come across sentences that will ask you to choose between simple words like flare versus flare. So the first one, an example, Julie has artistic flair, which means style. Jessica has artistic flair, which means a sudden blaze, a sudden fire. Accept versus accept, one of the really commonly used word choice questions on word choice differences. So accept, the first one means to, like the opposite of a reject, and the other one means not including. So we accept everyone except you. Here's another group. It's versus its. We've also covered that in pronouns, but it's important. So it's with the apostrophe is a contraction of it is. For example, it's a beautiful day. And the it's without a contraction is a possessive pronoun. Similarly, compliment and complement. Compliment with I means an appreciation. Something, let's say I compliment you. Complement means goes well together, something that matches. For example, the sauce complements the steak. The steak. All right, so that is complement, which means matching or going well together. Here's another example, advise, which is the verb, I advise you, versus advice, which is a noun, more like a suggestion. So I advise you to take my advice. Emigrate versus immigrate. So emigrate means when you're going out, when you're moving out. Immigrate means when you're coming in or moving in. Lie versus lay. Lie simply means being dishonest. Don't lie to me. Lay means to lie down on a bed. For example, I lay on the bed for 5 hours. All right, so that's the difference between lie and lay. So here are some of the options that are there that you can probably encounter. And I would recommend you to pause the video right now and make a note of all of these and try to go through them in detail. So I'm going to go ahead and move ahead. So here's a little practice paragraph for you. So you can pause the video and try to solve this on your own. Let me go ahead and give you the answers. So rising sea levels are not the only effect with the E, so the second one, that climate change is having on the planet. However, for the people living on tropical islands, this issue is more concerning than the second than others. Scientists around the world argue that leaders must carefully consider how climate change affects, the first affects the planet, except, so the second except, a small number that do not accept, the first one, their colleagues' arguments. So let me just go down and mark the options once. So this effect, than, affects, accept, and accept. So I hope you got them correct. And the next error that we are dealing with is wordiness. Oftentimes, words or phrases like being, having, doing, due to, because of, etc. are not the most efficient way of saying something. For example, consider this. The man could simultaneously pat his head and rub his stomach at the same time. Now, you don't need both of these phrases. You either pick simultaneously or you put at the same time, not both of them. So let's practice. About 3.5 million people ride the subways, and I think maybe, now you're already using the word maybe. You don't need words like possibly or perhaps or might possibly. So clearly, D is the answer. Yesterday, I sat across the aisle from a woman. Now, with aisle, you never use to or at or with. It's simply redundant because you're using the word across. So you just use the correct idiomatic form, which is from. So the answer is going to be J. Again, remember in the ACT, you do get options like F, G, H, and J, but in the SAT, you don't get options like that. In the new SAT, you only get A, B, C, and D. Some more questions for practice for you. So they encoded, transmitted, and decoded a 3-line message in 20 seconds as the machines required 30 minutes to perform the same job. So you're talking about a contrast here. So you definitely need a word like whereas, so D becomes the answer. Nevertheless, these tests convince the officials of the value of using the language in a code. You don't need nevertheless, you don't need similarly or still, so the answer is the simple J without any redundancies or extra words. It's the most concise option. Then number 16. The Navajo developed and memorized the code. C seems correct. You don't need the extra information in B or C or D, so A is the answer. And the 17th. The code talkers sometimes faced dangerous peril. Now, peril already means dangerous, so you don't need to use these extra modifiers. So it's going to be J. So I hope this was quite clear enough to you. Let's move ahead to the next few questions. Number 18. The code remained classified after the war that was later used. Now, definitely it's not the war that was used. And even B will go because of the same reason. A is gone, B is gone. Let's move to C. The code remained classified after the war and was later used, along with codes made from other languages in the Vietnam War. So you definitely need the and without the which. So C is going to be the answer. Because D will not make sense. It will look like the war was later used. Then coming to 19th. Smith realized the extent of her gift when her friend Alex Haley, who had gathered essential material. Now, essential already means important and critical. So you don't need C, you don't need D, you don't need A. B is the answer. You'll simply say essential material for his novel. So it's simply going to be option B. Another practice set for you. So, which of the following alternatives would not be acceptable? So we have to find the one that's not acceptable. So let's read. If a feather breaks off with the stub of its hollow quill shaft still in place, the bird's body mistakenly believes the feather is whole. Can you say the feather is sound? We can. The feather is complete? We can. The feather is total? Probably no. The feather is intact? We can. The odd one out is H, so H is going to be the answer. The number 21, based on again wordiness. For some people, traditional American Indian music is associated and connected. You don't need both the words. Connected by some of them. Again, wrong because you already said some people. Linked and association? No. So D is going to be the answer. It uses just one word, which is associated. The number 22. One type of music is known as Vela, which has been popular for more than a century. Now, you don't need, one might say, you don't need really and quite. You don't need popular for the duration because we already know century is a time duration. So the answer is going to be A. So those are the questions based on wordiness. And here are a few idioms that you should just go through once. So you can go ahead and pause the video, make a note of these idioms, and keep revising them from time to time. These are not the only idioms that will come, so if you encounter something new in any of the practice tests, you should definitely jot it down somewhere. But that will be all for this video, and I hope this was useful. Don't forget to watch the other videos that are related to the other errors, especially punctuation and rhetorical style. And remember, this video is applicable to the redesigned SAT as well as the ACT. And don't forget to visit us at perfect-scores.com. This is Preetinder Kaur for Perfect Scores. Thank you so much for watching this video.